Hello guys, so my name is Charity Phillips and I'm making this video to provide you guys with an update concerning the experiences that I'm having with systematic harassment. So for those of you who are unaware, in 2018 I made 2 videos letting you guys know about the experiences that I was having with systematic harassment. So specifically the blacklisting and employment issues that I was experiencing, and unfortunately I'm still experiencing the same issues today. I don't want to make these issues public, but unfortunately it's necessary in light of the harassers carrying out acts of violence against me and cutting off my ability to earn an income. So I'm making this video to get help with the situation, and then also to potentially help others who are experiencing the same issue and aren't quite sure what they're dealing with. So in this video, I'll provide you guys with an overview concerning the experiences that I've had over the last few years, and then in later videos, I'll provide you guys with the details concerning those experiences. So I originally took the videos that I posted in 2018 off the internet because it was communicated to me that there were people involved who were participating in the harassment who are also being harassed, and I never want to be the cause of harm to others, but I've found at that time that it was necessary to make public the things that the harassers were carrying out in secret and blaming on innocent people. This harassment is being carried out by government officials and those recruited by them and then blamed on innocent people. The purpose of recruiting individuals and private entities is so that the government can appear that they're having nothing to do with this, when the reality is that the technology that is being used by these individuals is government technology, and the resources that are being used by these individuals and private entities to harass me and others are resources that the government owns. So in my last video, I let you guys know what my status was at that time. So I was on a leave of absence from Stetson, and I was accepted into 2 other law schools, but I was denied the funding to pay for the tuition. So even though I applied to all of the public law schools in Florida either before or after the leave of absence, I wasn't accepted or granted admission into any of them. I was accepted into St. Thomas University and Nova, and I decided that I would attend St. Thomas University. Now, initially when I applied, I was denied the funding to attend, and those who organize the harassment always place me in situations where I have little to no funds, and they do this in order to stress me out and try to force me to compromise. And I'll provide you guys with details about that in a later video. So one of the tactics that the organizers of the harassment use is neutralization. So they confront you with so many different small battles in addition to the larger battles in order to try to silence you and to try to train you not to fight back. So some of the battles that I experience on a daily basis include them constantly coming into my apartment, tampering with my food, cutting up or ruining my clothes, and just a bunch of different other battles to try to train you not to fight back. So even in making this video, this is my 3rd attempt trying to make this video because of the constant problems that I experienced with editing and uploading the prior attempts. The goal is to exhaust you with constant fighting so that you essentially come to a place where you decide what's worth fighting for and what's not worth fighting for. And I decided that obtaining my law degree was worth the exclusion and the isolation that I experienced during that period of time. So isolation is not something that I normally would prefer, but I do prefer it in comparison to being around people whose aim is to drive you to insanity. So I graduated in May of last year, and I took Florida's bar exam in July. So although I passed the academic portion, the character and fitness investigation is still ongoing. And this is a process that has been going on for 2 years. So I originally submitted my bar application in March of 2020. And at this time, the process is still ongoing. So they use a slander in order to try to justify the prolonging of the investigation process. So this is a part of the effort to blacklist me. So I've applied for several jobs in the legal field, but I've only been extended one job, and that was with a public defender's office that's about 2 hours from where I live, and having my license to practice is necessary in order to accept that job. I've also applied for legal jobs through Robert Half. So even though one of their primary functions is to staff for the legal community, and I've applied for several jobs in the legal community, I was never offered any jobs in the legal field. I was only offered lower paying, non-legal jobs. So those who organize the harassment try to paint the picture that keeping me out of the legal field is for my protection. But the reality is that I've experienced the same type of harassment in every job that I've had since 2014. So even though I was experiencing these harassment issues prior to 2014, I didn't become aware of it or recognize it until 2014. And when I did become aware of it, the harassment increased. So in 2014, I became aware of the different tactics that they use to harass and neutralize you. And in 2019, I became aware of other technology that they use to control the mind and body of the person that is being targeted. So when you become aware of what's happening, they increase the harassment in order to try to prevent you from speaking out against it. There are some people who are recruited to participate in the harassment who genuinely believe that they are participating in order to help the person. But the reality is that they've been recruited in order to destroy the person that is being targeted. So with Robert Half, I was placed in 3 assignments, and I experienced the same type of harassment in all 3 of the placements. So one aim of the harassment is to degrade you in order to try to force you to react in a negative way to their harassment. So with Robert Half, the first assignment that I was placed in was with Hertz. And although the manager knew my qualifications, she placed me in the parking garage to check cars back in. She stated that I was never supposed to be inside and that the parking garage was the only placement. But this is part of the effort to blacklist and degrade me. But because I've been going through this for so long and I know who I am as a person, their slander and harassment doesn't bother me as much as it would someone who is unfamiliar with their tactics. So I mentioned earlier that they try to exhaust you with constant fighting, and that's what I experienced while at Hertz. Majority of the customers that return cars were instructed to say or act in some manner in order to garner a reaction from me. So this is the same thing that I experienced while at the next assignment I was placed in, and that was with Benefit Focus. And with this assignment, the sexual harassment was overt. So I made a complaint, and the next week after making the complaint, the assignment ended. So I also mentioned that they try to train you not to fight back. So the way that, or one of the ways that they do this is by retaliating against you when you speak up or when you make a complaint. When it comes to other forms of harassment, I'm not as vocal because it's not worth engaging. But when it comes to certain forms of racial harassment or sexual harassment, I speak out because these are forms of harassment that I would never, or I will never be comfortable with. So I know that I'm qualified to be an attorney, but I'm not employed in the legal field because of my race and gender. But I can't just refuse to work. I have to work in order to live. So this means accepting jobs that are not in the legal field, or accepting jobs that I don't necessarily prefer until I can work in the legal field. So another tactic that the organizers of the harassment use is constant provocation. And they do this in order to paint the person that's being targeted in a certain light so that it appears a certain way. So after the assignment with Benefit Focus ended, I decided to file a lawsuit because I know from experience what their aim is, and that is to keep the person that's being targeted unstable and dependent on family and friends for support. So after I filed this lawsuit, they contacted me with a job offer, and the assignment ended a few days into the job offer. The reason that the representative gave me, who called me and told me that the assignment was ending, was that it didn't seem that I wanted to be there. So this was just a retaliation for the lawsuit that I filed against them. So this assignment ended on December 13th, and a couple of days later, one of their representatives or one of their lawyers contacted me with a settlement offer. So this is a company that primarily, or one of their primary functions, is to staff for the legal community. And the basis of my lawsuit was that they refused to place me in assignments in the legal field, and that they intentionally placed me in assignments where I would be harassed. And they continued this behavior of taking advantage to the point where I had to continue pursuing the lawsuit. Now, normally I would never mention the details of a court case or of settlement negotiations, but the harassment and blacklisting is to the point where judicial officials are participating. So I filed 2 lawsuits last year, the one that I just mentioned, and then one against the apartment complex that I currently live in. And in both cases, the judges permitted decisions and results that would never be permitted by neutral decision makers. So in the case that I filed against the complex that I live in, after the trial was over, the judge stated that he was reserving ruling because he needed to research the law, but that he would promptly issue a ruling. Now, he said this after having a full trial on the issue and hearing the full details of the case. So the suit that I filed against them was for a breach of contract and violation of the Landlord and Tenant Act. So since moving into my apartment, there has been continuous unauthorized entry into my apartment, and majority of the tactics listed in the COINTELPRO counterintelligence program have been used against me. So this includes gaslighting, tampering with my belongings, stealing my belongings, tampering with my food, and just a number of other tactics that are listed in that report. As far as the unauthorized entry into the apartment, their representative admitted to the unauthorized entry and even went as far as stating that he didn't need my permission or consent to enter. So a week later, a ruling still wasn't issued, so I emailed his judicial assistant, and she emailed me back stating that all rulings take 60 days. And even when they did issue a ruling, they didn't address the unauthorized entry into my apartment. So the harassment and blacklisting is being participated in by law enforcement officers. So each time that I've called to make a report concerning the unauthorized entry or a break-in or a battery, law enforcement has refused to do their jobs in investigating the details of my complaint. Because they refused to do their jobs, I filed an internal affairs complaint, and even the internal affairs officers that were assigned to investigate the case refused to do their jobs in properly investigating the officers' failure to investigate. One of the internal affairs officers that was assigned to my case stated that he hadn't been in contact with the apartment complex, and then later in the conversation he stated that he had been in contact with the apartment complex and that there was an agreement that they would not enter my apartment without my permission or authorization. So unfortunately, there is lying on the part of law enforcement in order to cover up the harassment that is taking place. So the harassment and blacklisting is to the point where judicial officials are participating so that I can't even seek redress of these problems in a court of law by neutral decision makers. So the purpose of this site is to keep you guys informed of the harassment and blacklisting that is being carried out and blamed on innocent people. So again, it's not my first choice to make these issues public, but I find that it is necessary in light of the danger and the violence that I experience. So I'll make a separate video just on those issues. So until the next video, you guys take care.